Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to MNB World Talk Show. We hope you are having a wonderful Lunar New Year celebration. Today, we have invited the Ambassador of India to Mongolia, His Excellency Mr. Mahendra Pratap Singh.
Thank you, Sanbano. It's a pleasure for me and an honor for me to be joining you today at the studios as we commemorate the Lunar New Year Sagansar celebrations in Mongolia. My greetings and warm wishes to all of your viewers and to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
It's a pleasure for me and always a pleasure to be talking to young friends like you.
Thank you. So, since it's the Lunar New Year, would you like to...
Yeah, that's the tradition which I picked up after coming here.
Right. Okay. It is really interesting to see other people sniffing bottles. So, would you kindly tell the history of where did you get this?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you a very interesting story before I tell you about the snuff bottle. Where did I get it? The best is the snuff inside my bottle and the snuff inside your bottle is most likely to be from India. As for the snuff bottle, I got it near the Gandhan monastery when I came here. There's a place where I normally go for picking up things of my artistic interest, like horses, like camels. And one day I found the bottle and I brought it with me, more as a souvenir. And I never thought I'll be using it today when I meet you at the Lunar New Year. So thank you very much for giving me this honor.
I've only heard from movies made during the socialist era that the Indian powder was the best ones, and all of Mongolians thought it.
So, it still is.
Yeah,
I can tell you from my personal experience that at least I know of a few ministers and a few members of parliament who specially get the Indian snuff from India. And there are a few places. One place is in the south of India called Karnataka, which is very famous, and another place is up north. So people used to get it from there, and I think still they get it.
Let's get into our main questions for today. So you first visited Mongolia in 1999. So what was your first impression when you came to Mongolia? And would you kindly tell us about the history of how you come to Mongolia?
I don't think. Were you born in 1999?
Yeah, I was 3 years old.
So I came to your beautiful country when you were just 2 years old. And I accompanied my Vice President, Mr. Krishan Kant, who came here on a bilateral state visit. And I still remember, Mongolia, or rather I would say Ulaanbaatar, was not the place that I have seen it today. It was a quaint place, I would say dull, idyllic, also more closer to the nature. And there was nothing like the Shangri-La Hotel or any such things around here. And if I recall, there were only dusty roads and one main road that led from the National Library onto the Sukhbatar Square and coming on to the Beijing Street and all.
Avenue.
And then we had, if I recall, I'm not too sure, there were just two hotels, Ulaanbaatar and Bayongol.
Yeah, those were the
hotel.
main hotel.
And you can imagine Mongolia of those days.
Back in
but
those days,
it was as beautiful. The sky infatuated me. It's a blue sky, clean surroundings, nice people, hospitable people, warm people, a great affection towards India, and there was a great, I would say, deference to our shared common heritage of Buddhism. And the then ambassador, Kushik Pakula Rinpoche, who was called Teacher Ambassador by Mongolia, and he was here for almost 10 years in Mongolia, was instrumental in reviving this shared heritage of Buddhism, and not only in reviving the heritage of Buddhism, but also reviving and establishing more than 300 monasteries across Mongolia. So yeah, you took me back into those good memories where you could see, but people were the best part of it. Your hospitality was fabulous. I would say protocol was exemplary, and whatever came in conversation came from the heart. So I felt the instant bonding, but I never thought that I'll be posted to this place as ambassador, and it is my good fortune that I come here at a time when I'm seeing this transformed nation, altogether transformed, yet retaining its old spirits and heritage and the customs like the one which we had just now.
So you have returned to Mongolia after 20 years. So during those 20 years and before that, you must have visited and worked in many different countries.
Yes, I did.
So would you kindly tell which country touched your heart the most, and which country's culture and tradition and maybe even cuisine you liked the most?
That's something of an interesting question that you asked me. During the course of my service in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I worked in different capacities in different missions. But more than that, I worked as the Deputy Chief of Protocol and a Protocol Officer in the Ministry of External Affairs, and a part of which entailed that I would be responsible for making arrangements, organizational setup for the visits abroad of our President, Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, and also to handle the visits of foreign heads of states, kings and queens to India, including foreign ministers. And that part of duty took me to about 107, including Mongolia, countries, and I count 107 those countries where I have slept at least one night.
Wow.
But in terms of my service, this is my 7th posting. So your question is which country? It's a very difficult pick, if you look at the geographical stretch that I have covered. But I say deep within, I am a natural, nature-loving person, or a person who likes to be in the surroundings where nature beckons me. Of course, I'm not saying that the comforts of modern world are something that I don't like, but nature is something that remains close to my heart. So immediately, if I were to pick, I would be very happy to say that in my interview with one of the magazines when I arrived here, I said Mongolia continues to be the last bastion of untamed nature. What you could see, the nature, I have been to after half of Africa. So you have the wildlife. So you have been to Amazon forest, Brazil, and down Argentina. So you see another aspects of forest. But when you come here to Mongolia, you see practically everything. If you start moving from the western Mongolia, go to the south Gobi, then come down to the central part, you have different feel, different attraction, different, of course. Yeah. And I also feel that this is what I think I qualify as one of the best posting when I am much close to the nature. The air you breathe, the blue sky that you see, the sunshine that you see despite minus 40 temperature outside. Well, that warms my heart. And if you were to ask me other countries, well, other country that I liked most was Austria.
Austria?
Yeah.
Why?
And Austria again has something, if you have seen those paintings where you see a lake, the mountains, the people, the boat, a small jogging track, it has a bit of everything. And I think like Mongolians, I can't say Austrians are as warm as Mongolian, but yes, they make you comfortable as friends. But in terms of nature, yes, that part also attracts me the most. So I would say yes, Mongolia and Austria.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear.
Well, my daily routine begins normally at around 6:30. That is when I get up and take my dogs to the walk, and after I bring them back, I do a bit of yoga and stretching for about 40 odd minutes, and that gets me, a bit of how do I say, energy or energetic way to start my day. Then there's a little prayer that I say in my prayer room upstairs for a few minutes. Basically, I want to be with myself. I want to mull over as to what you can say spiritually or even otherwise. I look up and recount my blessings. And yes, after the breakfast, I come down here and start my work. Well, COVID has impacted a lot of flow of visitors, but in the normal times we will have a schedule of visitors coming in. Our embassy issues visas, take applications for the scholarships, facilitates business relationships, meeting businessmen. And for me, I meet some of them, the business people or the academics. And then it also involves visiting different institutions for different purposes, whether it is to bilaterally promote our relationship with them, whether institutes or business houses, Chamber of Commerce. And coming back, then I do a bit of a reading, catching up on the news internationally because of the time difference between various continents, and of course sending dispatches and all. So it pretty much sums up all. It may look like very simple, but when you start doing the work for any ambassador, I'm not saying for me, to be performing your duties to the best of abilities in this complex and challenged world where there is a multitude of issues that you need to deal. There is what I call the challenge for ambassador is the infodemic. You would have heard the word pandemic, but I say infodemic. Infodemic is in today's age and time, there is too much information about everything on this earth, be it a mundane thing like how do you wash your hands, or to a complex things like how US policy towards South China Sea would evolve and impact the world. So you have to glean, you have to filter, you have to sieve the relevant information, put it contextually, whether it helps you in your work or it helps you take forward your own goals. That is important. And the other thing which as ambassador we need to do is become an expert of almost everything, be it disarmament, be it space technology, be it information. I wouldn't call it a jack, but I would say we become somewhat of a informed narrative needs to be built up, putting it contextually in the relationship of our two countries. So that we all do. And a little bit of a winding that I do is in the evening I do my jogging, walk my dogs, and again a bit of a soccer that I play outside in the compound, whosoever is available. We have a basketball court outside just behind the embassy within the compound, and also the tennis courts and table tennis table upstairs. So pretty much juggling between all of that we try to do. And this sums up. So it is not only the diplomatic duties that keep us busy, but attending National Day receptions, meeting ministers, explaining to them our thought process, strategize on going forward as to how best we can take our relationship, how to get more economic content. The world is oriented now more towards economic diplomacy rather than the cultural diplomacy. So yeah, we try to get in all those elements into our relationship. And of course there are some files to sign and internal administrative paper. That takes care of the day.
So let's go even before that. So what made you want to become a diplomat, as someone who works in this field? It's actually really hard work. So you were always traveling with your family.
Yeah.
So what made you choose this
This
career?
is not the first time I'm asked this question, but my answer has remained steady. That when you are growing up, at least I used to read a lot of books. Personally speaking,
Right.
I feel books are the best companion to any person. If you are with the books, you are with a friend, you are with a philosopher, you are with a guide, you are with a guru, you are the teacher. So yeah, we used to read lots of books, and back then, the travel was something which was a luxury.
Of course.
When I was growing up, things were not as rosy and the world was a different place. Travel was considered to be the luxury. And second thing is that whenever we used to see, those ceremonies on the television, you would see, a huge pageantry of a president or a king or a queen coming in a convoy.
Right.
And whenever I asked my father, well, who makes the arrangements for this? He says, well, Ministry of External Affairs. Ministry of External Affairs, that back then didn't make much sense. And as we went along, we saw the summits, all of this. And that, if you recall, periods of 17 and 60s were the time when the world geopolitics was at a different stage. So diplomacy took a lot of front stage, and you would see lots of summit level meetings between the leaders. So that encouraged me. Is it possible that if I could also be part of this whole setup? And that encouraged me to embark upon a career. And fortunately or luckily, I was able to get into the Foreign Service back then in '85, and incrementally I've made my way up here. So yes, I would say it has always been my ambition, and I'm thankful to God, I'm thankful to my family, I'm thankful to everyone who has played a role in making me join this career, and I'm proud of it.
That's a wonderful history. So you came to Mongolia as an ambassador last year.
That's correct.
So
not last year, let me correct you. I came in 2019.
Of course, 2009. I thought it was 2020 today. So during these 2 years, what was the difficult part of working in Mongolia? Most of the people say it would be the weather. And what was the most pleasant parts of working in Mongolia?
Well, I would say normally people say, okay, good things first or bad thing first. So I'll say good things first.
Of course.
As I told you, my first visit to Mongolia back in '99 attracted me to the Mongolian culture. And coming to Mongolia is something that helped me also bring in connect with the nature. And you said, what is the best part? I say the best part of Mongolia is the people are wonderful. Hospitality is exceptional. There is a bonding of heart, and the feeling that is the genuinely welcome feeling that you get from Mongolians is something that you don't get in many places. Weather, well, I wouldn't say weather is bad, but once you get used to it, weather is nice. And what makes it more attractive is the sunshine. I was posted to Toronto, where the temperatures were again minus 20 and all, but the days were very gloomy. You looked out to a dark sky, a muggy environment. But here, when you look out, it's a brightly shining, sunny, an eternal blue sky. Wherever you go, in winter you see, a layer of white. And when you travel in summers, you see the layer of green. So much of the traditions that I've seen up here, just as the snuff bottle and other things that, I would say I call them pleasant, are many customs. For example, humi and the moringhor are something that have a place of eternal heritage in Mongolia. Now, coming to the worst part, there's nothing I could say worst part, but only thing I wish is that Mongolia should have more roads and more
is it difficult to travel
more flights.
Right.
That was the only, I would say, unpleasant part for me. Traveling roads and off-roads is something that takes a lot of your time, and also, I would say, much of the comfort. But other than that, I think in every which way, I can call Mongolia as a very pleasant, warm, welcoming nation, especially for Indians. It has the bond of hearts. We have the shared heritage of Buddhism, and that makes us not only the third neighbor, but the spiritual neighbors as well.
So today is Lunar New Year. So thank you for honoring us by wearing our traditional costume. So where did you had it made?
Well, I was traveling to Hobbies province for a commercial project inauguration, and that project was being done by an Indian company, and I ended up in the evening, and suddenly in the evening a person came and took my measurements. He says, I want to take your measurements. I couldn't understand as to why.
Right.
And the next evening, when I was at the dinner, this gentleman brings me this half tail, and I asked him, it was very sweet and wonderful of him, and then I asked him, why did you pick up only this color? And then he responded to me, well, I always see you wearing the red color.
Right.
No. As I say, so that's how I got it made, and so it is with me. And other than this, I do have the summer dale and the winter dales with me, which I wear on the special occasions.
I see.
Like Nadam, like Sagansar, or if I go to an official event where I need to be in the traditional attire, then I'll use that.
I see. So speaking of traditional New Year's, does India? What celebration is India's most similar to the Mongolian Lunar New Year?
Well, I would say that India is a land of festival. It's a continental nation with the kind of states that we have. But there is one festival that stands out in celebration, something like your own Sagansar, is Diwali. It's the festival of lights. This festival marks the return of Lord Rama from his victory over the evil Ravana. When he came back to his kingdom, people lit the lights and started celebrating. And it is something that goes way back. It's in the epic. It is written. So this epic has given way to what we call as Diwali, which is more or less, you can say, the New Year for the traditional or conservative Indians back then. And it continues to be a very important festival where all of the ledgers and all of the books are closed, accounts are written afresh starting the new year. Prayers at home, prayers at the temples are held. Just like you have few days, people gather together, they exchange sweets, they exchange gifts. Just as you do, the elder give gifts to the younger one, and the younger one seek blessings from the elder one. So yeah, Diwali is that festival, I can say, which comes closest to the Sagansar.
When is it celebrated?
Diwali is celebrated around October and November.
I see.
Just close to the New Year. Of course, we do celebrate, the younger generation do celebrate the New Year, but I would say more focus is always towards Diwali. Well, you asked me about my hobbies, and I told you that reading is something that comes close to my heart, and this is a habit that I picked up when I was young. And I told you about the books are your best companion. You are never alone when you are with the books, and they conjure up the whole of image that you can imagine, that you can see. And as a matter of fact, if you want to see a place but you have not been, read a book. And so yes, reading books is something that remains a passion for me. Books of all kinds, whether it is philosophy, fiction, science, or general, especially history. That was one of my subjects when I was in high school, and that's where I got attracted to know more and more about the different civilizations, different people, different cultures, different customs. And that is perhaps one of the reasons that has brought me to this wonderful country. I would say the eternal blue sky, and something that nature you can see without any obstruction. Yes, of late you asked me what I'm reading. I'm reading right now. I would reading Harari's book, Noel Harari's book, *Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind*, and it talks about the genesis of mankind, starting from the Stone Age to the 21st century, essentially focusing on the Homo sapiens, the evolution, how the societies evolved and how the concepts evolved. So yeah, and another book which I'm parallelly reading is An Idea of Justice by Amartya Sen, a Nobel laureate. He's an Indian origin person settled in US who wrote about inequalities and the welfare economics in his book called Idea of Justice. I had finished reading Jack Weatherford's the second book, Mongol Queens, and of course I have read, as I told you earlier, about the secret history of Mongolian empire. There's echoes of empire that I have read before coming here. And one thing which I'm rereading in today's context, if you have seen the world geopolitics, is at a stage where everything is in a state of flux. So I'm rereading two books by George Orwell. One is 1984, if you are aware. It shows, how the technology would take over the world and how everyday life would be impacted so much. He never thought that technology would advance so much, but still it is topical. So yeah, that keeps me busy. And I told you more, I'm a traditional book reader. Other hobby is, as I showed you, is collecting Buddhas and plates from different parts of the world. Well, I have traveled very extensively, almost 107 countries, including Mongolia, till about 2020. And I hope to cover some more when I get more time and when travel restrictions are eased. And this hobby of picking up a statue of Buddha from each of the country has been with me for a while. And these are not all the statues that I've collected, except that I have little place to keep them. So you saw that in the prayer room back there and here. So yeah, each one of Buddha's personality is depicted differently depending upon the culture and custom of that particular country. If you look at Buddha from Thailand, Buddha from Sri Lanka, Buddha from Mongolia, Buddha from Japan, Buddha from Nepal, Buddha from Bhutan, each of them has a different personification of Lord Buddha. And it is not that Lord Buddha was different, but each one envisions him as a different personality, as a different compassionate person. So yeah, but that's very close to my heart. So you saw Thankas up there, you saw Buddha paintings, you saw Buddha statues, and God permit me the will, and I'd like to keep collecting more, and perhaps one day I'll donate them to a place where these could be placed for more people to see. that is when time comes.
With these few questions, I would like to more focus on your personality. So, when I first saw you and saw your name, the Singh, I knew that you were the follower of Sikhism. So, I myself is really interested in martial arts, and I heard that Sikh faith itself follows the martial tradition really strictly. So, are you a warrior? Well, your body most certainly looks like a warrior.
You will give me the
You're
you will give me the title of ambassador warrior. No, I do not like to. But yes, I belong to the Sikh faith. The Sikh faith is about 550 years old, propounded by the first Guru, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, in memory of whom we have created a garden here in the national park by planting 550 trees.
Right.
And yes, as you grow up, we have this tradition of martial arts. So when you are growing up, I think you naturally get, I would say, invited to learn your own traditions, customs.
Right.
And the Sikhs have the customs which are little different. Sikhs are the martial race. So as a martial race, generally, there is a sect called Nihangs. They always wear blue clothes, something like that you are wearing.
Oh.
So they live like warriors. All their life is learning about weapons and weaponry, and they dedicate themselves to the faith. So there is a big, ashram or a place in Punjab where Nihangs are there. And as a general practice, the boys and the girls, they pick up the art of Gatka. And you asked about Chakram. Chakram is only one part of this tradition called Gatka. Gatka is an overarching term which includes different forms of fighting. It includes the sword, it includes the spear, it includes the chakram, it includes the hammer, and all of those, and the sticks. So much of that fascinates, and for me particular, I would say not as much as chakram, but the sword. There is something that I learned a little bit about that when I was young, in the age of about 10 to 12. And it continued, and it remains as a hobby, but of late I have not been able to practice it. But whenever I get a chance to see or to involve myself to participate in the Gatka competition, which is done every year in Punjab. And I forgot to tell you, the biggest part of this whole martial thing is the horse. As in Mongolia, as in India, the horse is an integral part. And the best part or the best thing what we do or the Nihangs do in India is, as a part of annual exercise, there is a competition which involves not only the weaponry but also your skills on the horse. So the pegging or riding simultaneously on the two running horses is something that is very, very popular.
That's actually really interesting.
And of course, here is the archery, but where you stand up and you balance and then you do the thing. So yeah, I would say there's much more common element in this regard with Mongolia than anywhere else.
So I saw the Nihang you mentioned, they wear their chakram on their turbans.
That's correct.
So, speaking of turbans, would you kindly tell us about why do Sikh people wear turbans, and why you always wear red? Does the color have any particular meaning?
Well, thank you for asking this question. Again, this question, as I told you, was asked to me many times, but
right.
then I'd say in Sikh faith, there are 5 elements that you have to keep. And keeping your hair uncut is one of the parts.
Right.
And keeping a small symbolic kirpan or the sword with you is another.
I see.
And so yes, since you don't cut your hair, I have never cut my hair in my life. And
In your life?
In my life.
Oh, so
All Sikh people, I would say most Sikh people rather, some have done now, most Sikh people, most of all, will keep their hair uncut.
Right.
That includes the female and the men. So when you have a long hair, you put them in a kind of in a fashion, and that covers your head. So this headgear is called turban or pagri. Back in India, in our place, we call it as the crown of the Sikh people.
I see.
So yeah, this is to cover my head in a presentable manner, and to also make it look more presentable in terms of what I keep, the beard and all.
So
this
about
is how.
The beard? Do you cut the beard?
No, never.
Never?
Never.
That's nice.
And again, the good part is, I think most people believe that if you don't cut it, they'll grow very long. No, if you don't cut it, after a while they stop growing.
I see.
And when you cut it, it's against the nature, so they'll grow more. But the way I see it, if I had had a continuous to have a growth of hair, it should have been touching the ground, but not anymore. They're just up here. So this turban is I would say, a symbol or a crown of Sikh faith, and the color does not have any significance except that I prefer personally red color, so I always keep red.
I see. So, what other hobbies do you have? I've heard that you collect Buddhas. Would you tell us more about that?
I think one of your friends would have told you. She came home, and yes, as a personal belief, I have a little place in my home, which we always call it as a prayer room. And that is not only for me. I have kept articles of faith from every single faith, whether it is Christianity, Muslim, Buddhism, Jainism, or my own faith. But as a part of the corner, as I told you, I've been traveling a lot, and I used to collect Buddhas and plates. So I have now a collection of about 23 plus Buddhas from different countries, each of the Buddhist countries, wherever I could get. My other, I wouldn't say passion, but which has been continuing is that I love to read books. So yeah, that
Right.
Is something that I keep, and of course, things have now moved on from books in physical form to Kindle, but I am still a typical person who prefers the books
Physical,
to the Kindle.
So I would like to talk about the history of our two nations, more about the culture of Sikhism, but unfortunately our time has reached for the program, and I really hope that we will have the time to talk more about this in the future.
Thank you very much. As I say, my thankfulness to the Mongolian National Broadcast World, MNB World as you call it, for having me here in your studios, and I certainly look forward to interacting more with you with a view to share my unique experiences of living in Mongolia. And it is such a pleasure that I am joining you during Sagansar. My best wishes to all the viewers. Sagansar, may you have a safe, healthy New Year and celebrate safely with your family and friends.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
So this concludes our today's program. We wish you the best of luck in the upcoming year of the ox, and we will see you next time with more episodes. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.